Back before Google, LinkedIn, and cell phones, I stumbled on recruiting. I always knew I wanted to create a recruiting firm that created an incredible candidate and client experience while allowing me, as well as my team, an opportunity to live an abundant life on our own terms, to have the freedom to work where, when, and how we want, and to be rewarded financially for a job well done. It has been a long, sometimes messy marathon, but wow, have I learned a lot about recruiting, branding, sales, scaling, leadership, overcoming challenges, and most importantly, overcoming myself. I absolutely love our industry, and this podcast is for you, my fellow recruiters ready to learn, grow, and push yourself to your next level. Let's do this together. We are talking about all things recruiting. Welcome to the show. Today I have Clark Wilcox on the podcast. We had a great conversation, and if you don't know Clark, he is a seasoned recruiter, entrepreneur, and founder of The Digital Recruiter, a coaching and consulting program that helps recruiting professionals master the art of LinkedIn marketing, content strategy, and automation. And those are really all the things that we talked about today. We talked about best practices when it comes to business development. We talked about mistakes that he's seeing that a lot of recruiters are making when it comes to automation. And we talked about content marketing, what that means, and how to be good at it and to really attract the right people to your marketing. So join us. Let's get started. It was a good one. All right. Welcome back to All Things Recruiting. Clark Wilcox, I am so excited to have you on the show. So thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Sharon. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it is. Definitely. So before we get started, I'm going to just jump right in, give the listeners, if they don't know you, and I know you have such a big audience that, I'm sure that so many of our listeners already know, but for those of you that don't, here's a little bit about Clark.
Well, what I've learned, Sharon, thank you for that. I don't know how big the audience is. There's always people that haven't heard of me, which is good. I kind of like it that way. But in the short of it, I'm Clark Wilcox, founder of Digital Recruiter. So we help recruiting agencies, recruiters, but really mostly recruiting agencies with their top of funnel outreach. We do a lot on LinkedIn. In short, we help you get the clients that you want, more of the candidates that you want, and make them feel that you're not chasing after them like most recruiters, but that they're actually excited to talk to you. So that's really kind of what we're aiming for. So you have more time for good meetings, good conversations with your market, and less feeling like you're just chasing and like, when does this end? That's the in layman's terms, that's what we do.
That's great. And how did you get started? Because I know you started in recruiting, right?
Yeah.
Many years ago. Yeah. And then how did you transition into what you're doing right now?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, if you had told me in 2013 that now 2025, I'd be teaching recruiters LinkedIn automation and content marketing, I'm like, I don't know what any of those things mean or are. So it wouldn't have made any sense to me at the time. But yeah, I got in recruiting in 2013. I was doing B2B telecom sales in Los Angeles, and I was absolutely miserable. I was technically remote, but had to go door to door. I did not have the discipline or the training or the structure to do any of that. I had some decent success. I did a couple 100,000 in sales or whatever. It was nothing crazy. It was so hard to do. And I was like, after a while, I just kind of had enough of it. I think Verizon screwed up an install, so I had to give my commission back. Like, I didn't do anything wrong. They did. And I was like, all right, I've had enough of this. Had a friend help me out, put a couple awards that may or may not have happened on my resume, and I got it out to Career Builder or Indeed or whatever it was. Aerotech called me about a contract role. That wasn't a fit. They're like, have you thought about being a recruiter? I was like, I have no idea what that is. I still don't understand who I'm talking to right now. So like many of us, I fell into it, and it just kind of made sense to me right away. They put me in the commercial division, so light industrial, skilled trades. Did that for about 8 months. I had about 4K in spread in 3 months. I hit the 10K, which is like the magic mark, in 5 months, which is quicker than any other recruiter in the office. So recruiting just like made sense to me. And I had an amazing manager. My direct manager was amazing. Our office manager, our DBO was incredible. Just like the first place I really felt like poured into me and invested in me. And Aerotech does have a great training program and foundation that if you just follow the steps, like, who knows, it works, right? Who knew? And it just, then I got promoted quickly. That's where I thought I was going to be incredible. I was far from it. I fell flat on my face probably for the first couple of years. Selling is way different when you're trying to get someone to pay you a fee or pay you bill rates versus offering basically a free service to candidates. So that was like my wake up moment. I thought I was going to be this great manager because I like people. That didn't work out. That's not enough. Turns out to be a good manager, like good at selling. And so I hit every speed bump you can think of. I think maybe in life, but especially in sales in the beginning. And kind of fast forward a few years, I hit my all-time high at Aerotech, and that was the day I decided I wanted to quit.
Really?
Yeah.
Like
yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
What was it about that? Because usually that's, you feel fulfilled, you're excited.
I know.
What made you go from that to saying, I'm going to quit?
It's just the mountain to climb. I learned so much in trying to just climb that mountain, if you will. I think I was like 18, 19, maybe. I don't know if I ever hit 20K in weekly spread. It was definitely at least 18. And I worked so hard because it was a struggle for me. I knew what we could do well, but I had to figure out really honing in on my skill sets, like really narrowing down what that is, narrowing down my top 20 target accounts. I mean, we're talking stuff that took me a year and a half, 2 years to just be like, okay, now I get why people do this. I was just all over the place. There was no real strategy. I was robotic. I was transactional. And then I switched, and I just got it. My second recruiting hire, my first one wasn't good. Like, that was on me. My second, third, and fourth ones were great. And so I got the right team, we got the right focus, and it's just like, okay, I did it. I had my territory. I was in LA. My name's Clark Wilcox. I don't speak any Spanish, so I had my own. The degree of difficulty was a little bit higher, right, in the light industrial skilled trades. But it's like, I felt like I figured all that stuff out. My recruiters were hitting good numbers, starting to get promoted. But then accounts my big accounts would leave my territory, and I'm like, there's nothing I could do, right? Or if I had like a really, really big account, I had to go to the national level. So I just felt constricted with my area a little bit, and so that was kind of part of it, where I thought I was building these great relationships and I had to give business away, or I couldn't run with it. Was frustrating. A changing of the commission structure with shares and everything versus cash bonus. That didn't really appeal to me. I'm always big when I worked at companies, looking at people 10, 15, 20 years older than me, do I want to be there in 10, 15, 20 years? And the answer became more and more no. I didn't want to be like that. Not necessarily bad people. It's just not what I wanted to do over and over again. I got rated world class by my clients, the NPS score, whatever, which is very rare in light industrial. It's typically in the negatives. And so I was my clients love me. My recruiters get better. I had the best margins in our division. My roles, longer term contract to hire, good spread, but it's I just feel like I'm just constantly 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. And even though I was hitting these peaks, and I was just exhausted and burnt out, it just didn't feel efficient. And efficiency is a big thing for me. And if I feel like I'm wasting my time, right, or when I'm looking at the call list, I'm like, I don't know if I want to work with these people. I don't feel like throwing, quote unquote, bodies at the wall and hoping they stick. I hate dealing with turnover, and I was in light industrial. Right, it just drove me nuts, and so that's a kind of a long-winded explanation of everything, all the factors that it was. And then when I hit that all-time high, I was just I didn't feel anything. I was great. I almost felt like I was doing it for other people, right? Or hitting contests and going to Cancun with a couple thousand coworkers, trying, where they're trying to liquor you up but also saying, hey, be responsible, right? Don't get too drunk. And I'm that's my reward for hitting contests, and I get shares that I don't, you know what I mean? It just, the incentives didn't line up. Yeah. So.
And sometimes you have to go through that to realize that, there's got to be something else, because even with all the success, the accolades, it still doesn't make you feel, fulfilled. No. Yeah. So it's good that you realize that.
Yeah. I know it's I probably get a 5-minute answer there, but it's something I don't hear enough. But when I talk to recruiters, almost always comes up. people have some stories around that. I had some insecurities when I got back into recruiting because of that. I was like, am I qualified to talk about it and everything? I never thought I'd get back into recruiting until it kind of happened 2020, 2021. And I just hear stories like that all the time where sometimes it is a situation. And sometimes the situation brought out maybe some of the worst in me towards the end where I just kind of felt like, I just want to do this. But I don't want to get paid to be lazy. So I was like, I'm just going to leave. And I'm just going to go figure something else out, and just kind of be proactive about it. And I had some savings and everything else that allowed me the runway to kind of go figure some stuff out. But it's important because I think some people and your listeners, like, you can be in a tough situation. Like, it doesn't mean that you're not good at this.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what I love recruiting, because over the years I've seen and I've kind of been in I've put myself in every single situation, focused on contract, focusing on direct hire, trying to build a big team, going back into more of a boutique style, because that's what I love. Like, I realized I didn't want to grow into a huge staffing firm, that it just wasn't in my DNA. And I didn't like all the things that I had to do and that I wasn't doing, which was actually recruiting and talking to clients. Like, that's the part I like, But I think you have to go through that phase and understand and realize that even if we're, maybe some of our listeners are at with their recruiting experience, it's not that they don't love recruiting. It's maybe that they don't love where they're working in recruiting right now, or what they're focused on, or what level. Like, there's so many different things that we can do. And obviously, like, look at you, Clark, like, you've taken it and turned it into a completely different business. And now you're able to help recruiters, with content marketing and all the things that we'll talk about. So I think it's good to know, like, sometimes you don't have to throw that quote, like, throw the baby out with the bathwater. You just have to, like, pivot a bit, and you can still be in the industry, because you've had success and you love parts of it, and just make it work, for you.
I think it's well said. It's a great point. And I almost did throw it, figuratively speaking, the baby out with the bathwater. And it's crazy to think, like, it took 2 years to kind of get back into it, but I was so burnt out. I was consulting, I was helping companies, and it always kind of came back to helping them with hiring, because that's what I knew how to do really well. But I didn't really know there was a world of recruiting outside Aerotech. I was just so insulated. I was kind of referenced the movie The Island that now came out like 20-something years ago with, like, Ewan McGregor, where they're in the island and they escape and they realize, like, it's the real world, and it turns out they're clones or whatever. But they're like, wait, there's a whole world out here of, like, people like me. I was clueless. And that is always when there's so much out there, which is really exciting. And to the other side of that, though, is there's so much out there. It's almost like, how do you pick what to do a lot of the time, right? Or what to focus on, right? What niche should I pick is a question I get all the time. And one of the things that has helped me is just, like, what are my strengths? Like, what are my strengths? Also, was like, what problems do I like to solve? Do I want to solve? And that is that skill set? Is that industry? Is that director level, entry level, C level? Is it content marketing, automation? Right? Because people are like, why don't you just, like, scale your own recruiting firm? I was like, it's like, I don't mind recruiting. I don't mind selling and recruiting, but I feel like I've like done that challenge in a way. You know what I mean? Like, I think, like, I really understand, the qualify, the business, all that. Like, to me, the content market, the automation, like, that's a new frontier. That's a new challenge. Like, that's what drives me. And I always loved managing and training recruiters and having recruiters outside my direct report come to me like, hey, how do I get my spread up? And how do I, I'm trying to do this or interact with managers this way or that way. And I just loved working with recruiters and mentoring recruiters. And so I'm like, well, that's what I enjoyed the most, like that and the client relationship. So I get to replicate that now. I get to train up recruiters while recruiters are my clients. So, like, to me, that was the best of both worlds. Those are the two things I enjoyed most about the job. So I just double down. And I think with marketing and automation nowadays, like, you get to pick what you want to go after. Like, and I think that's one of the things I always want to, when I, on a podcast or just talking to anyone is like make that point of, like, you get to pick nowadays. There are systems and approaches that you can do to scale beyond anything you could have done 10, 20, 30 years ago that you just you can scale that, pick what you want to do, and then just go find those people and invite them in to your ecosystem. That's like the wonderful part about kind of what I learned, post Aerotech days.
I love that. And I know people can do it, like our listeners can try to do it on their own, thinking about, okay, what vertical do I want to focus on? How can I best reach out to them? But there are some best practices, and that's why, I wanted to make sure that we talk about that on the podcast, because you've done so much work in this. Yeah. So throughout, I would say the last year and a half, I hear over and over, it's the client development, it's the business development that a lot of our recruiters are finding is definitely more difficult right now. I see the market changing a lot, but it's still difficult. And I think especially for 360 recruiters, you always have to be selling. You always have to be reaching out. And now there is so much automation that they can do so that they can continually do that. And there's not these gaps of, I'm too busy to do it. Oh, now I don't have enough job orders. Now I need to go do business development again. It's like that vicious cycle. So what are some best practices that you feel would be super important for recruiters right now to make sure that they're doing?
Yeah, I love this question. So it's the seesaw, right? To your point, full desk. It's the seesaw of Rex and then BD and then back and forth, right? Kind of, that pendulum. Number one, why are you doing this, right? You got to understand, why are you doing this? Business development is hard. Business development and agency recruiting is even harder. Like dealing with people. If you really don't want to do it, you got to be honest with yourself. I think number one there. And be okay that it might not be, and then maybe you partner up with someone that does more BD or something else. But I think just that piece of it. And then number two is most people want to sell without selling, right? And I think that is kind of the way of the world now. And I think there's some of the opportunity there as well. So how do you do that? Most people get their business through referrals, right? It's how I hear all the time. If someone knew it, they recommended me. And that's great, right? The referrals kind of buttered up someone for you, and then you talk to them, you qualify it, maybe sign an agreement. They're probably going to sign with you. Maybe it's a referral, no matter what, especially if it's contingent, there's not much risk. What I see often is that there's a huge miss on fundamentals in qualifying good business and not good business. So that's really number one, is be committed to qualifying good business and knowing what your process is for that. It's one of the things Aerotech taught and repeated over and over that they did an incredible job. It was how to qualify roles. We would have to put tags on the board. It's called Red Zone. We meet twice a day. If you put that tag on the board, it had a start date, interview date, logistics. You knew the pay. You knew it was going to be a role that there was going to fill. You identified the urgencies, the threats. That's the biggest thing, because you could have top of funnel, you could have automation, content, you could have opportunities, but if you don't have the discipline to qualify good business and kind of that training and to stick with it and to not just say, well, these are 3 out of 10, 4 out of 10 roles, but it's better than nothing. I couldn't disagree with that anymore. Having no business is better than having bad business, especially right now, because there's so much. You could reallocate that time in so many better avenues and avenues that can create a better ROI. So those are the two things, just from a macro level, that I want that are best practices, just to kind of think about and just have that discipline, that commitment, that patience, that, hey, this is the long game. I could start my desk today, maybe start getting clients within 3 months, maybe start getting placements months 3 to 6. You might not get paid till month 6 or 9, right? If you're doing contingent, big fees, direct hire. So keep that in mind with all this, right? As you have that discipline. And people might be starting out their desk, right? They might be doing this for 20 years, already have an established desk. But just taking a step back, things always take a little bit longer than you think, even if you get momentum pretty quick, right? So then there's that kind of that third part. So it's, know why you're doing this, qualify well, and then have patience. Kind of the 3 traits to start with from a macro level. You want to say anything on that, or because I got more, but yeah.
You're pausing, but no, that is exactly right. That's so true. Everything that you just said. So I think the why is the biggest thing, because there are recruiters that they feel like they should do business development, or they're in a role where they have to. But I think in today's world, there's so many different ways, like you mentioned, partnering with other people that are really good at business development and love it. If it's something that it gives you a stomach ache, then you need to readjust, but you could still be in recruiting and just, shift it so you're not having to do the business development.
Yeah.
In my office, we give everyone we have the brokerage model that we've been doing for about a year. So people get to choose. So there's some that love doing business development and they just focus on business development. They're not recruiting. And then I have some that are doing both sides of the desk. And then I have some that just love recruiting and they just don't want to do the business development. But we collaborate and share ideas and share leads, and it just works. So I definitely feel like that is a lot of times we know what we're supposed to be doing with business development. We know how to do it. It's just, are you doing it? And do you want to do it?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, let me make this more fun then, right? Because I've talked about the big things that people are like, all right, Clark, I get all that. I know it.
Yeah.
Tell me something I don't know. Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
So the second phase to all this is like, all right, you want to do this. You're committed to it. You know the type of business that you want to go after. And as I said earlier, like you get to choose, right? You have your proof, ideally lean into stuff that you already have proof of concept for. So if you're a physical therapist, maybe start recruiting physical therapists. They're in dire need, right? So there's a whole learning curve there, but like that's easy, right? If you come from software engineering, maybe play software engineers, accounting and finance, right? So on and so on, right? Lean into your strengths as much as possible because you want to reduce the friction. There are so many friction points in selling services and selling agency services that you want to think, how can I reduce the friction point and make it easy for my buyer to say yes, to interact with me, to go and just to break the ice. And there's so many ways to break the ice versus beyond just you having to say something, right? And that's where marketing and positioning comes into play. And so it's taking that and then fishing where the fish are. Right, if you don't want to do a bunch of cold calls, cold emails, and I hate cold emails and cold calls. Like I haven't made a cold call since 2017, and I don't have to. If you have to, you have to. Am I against emails and calls? No, but where I look at it is, first of all, fish where the fish are, and for a lot of people listening, that's going to be LinkedIn, especially business development. Pretty much every niche is on LinkedIn for business development. Even people that are looking for forklift drivers are posting those jobs on LinkedIn. Right, and they're never going to find a forklift driver on LinkedIn, but that doesn't stop them from trying, right? So it means that they're on LinkedIn. So I always say start with LinkedIn as the foundation because you can build a strategy as a foundation, capture what you can get from the people that are on there, and the people that aren't on there, well, that could be your call list. That's your email list, right? Your pending invites, like all this different stuff, like can be what your call list is. But if you build an intentional strategy and don't just kind of spray and pray, but really hone in, do the work on the front end, just like qualifying a good rec, you qualify hard on the front end to make it an easier close at the end, right? When you get lazy on the front end of just qualifying a role, what happens at the end? It falls through, right? And Sharon, you and I have been doing this long enough. We could probably tell with a couple questions from a recruiter if they have a real role or not. Right? It's, the start date, why is this open? How long has it been open? And really, why are they coming to you? Because I'm always looking at it like, do you want to talk to me? Like, you're going to give me $30,000, $20,000? Like, why would you want to do that? Right? Explain it to me. Right? And kind of, instead of being like, oh, will you give me a role, Mr. or Mrs. Manager? You should have a healthy skepticism with everything that you do. Now, you also just need enough volume to be skeptical with enough people. And so that's why I say start with LinkedIn, optimize your profile from your headline, your banner, your profile picture, your about section. Like, share your story, share a little bit about your process, share your wins, your results. Like, put that publicly. Make it super stupidly simple for your ideal market. If they read a post or a comment of yours and you connect with them, to go to your profile and see kind of what you're about, why you do it, and who you've helped that's like them. That's the goal with the profile. And you can leverage, say, like a Sales Navigator, Recruiter. I love Sales Navigator, $99 a month. It's an amazing tool. You can hand select all the companies that you want to target and then pull leads solely from those accounts on Sales Navigator, and then you can leverage LinkedIn automation for $99 a month, $80 a month, depending on what you go for. And so for $180 a month, you can send out 800 connection requests on LinkedIn every month, build a drip sequence on that. And so then this becomes the important part, what's content and what's messaging, right? When you have the profile, you have the right list, your messaging, and I'm sure we all get the hey, can I give you 50 leads a month for free and this and that, right? What do we get for messaging? It's all about that person. So if you think about, be curious, but make your messaging content all about your market. And that's fundamentally the mindset shift I think I have to help make all my clients make, is none of this is about you. Right? It's all about your market. Everything for the messaging, your content, it should resonate with them. And so much outreach is just all about the person doing the outreach. Because most people are doing outreach or have learned outreach from people that have KPIs to hit or on a W-2 and they have to hit their metrics. So they're just desperate and they're just kind of doing what they're told. But the opportunity now is in just starting conversations at scale. Find something that's relevant. Look at open-ended questions, right? If you're in a market that struggles with hiring, like, hey, how are you addressing some of the hiring challenges in nursing, in healthcare, in accounting and finance? If you're in a saturated market like SaaS and maybe SaaS sales, like, how are you dealing with the influx of candidates or vetting the right sales talent, right? How do you know people aren't making up the quota that they've hit, right? Like, try to be relevant with your vertical, with your niche, whatever you're talking, and just do the work there to start conversations like you would at a networking event, right? A networking event, you don't have a 5-paragraph introduction about who you are, unlike what I did on this podcast, right? When I rambled for 5 minutes. But like you have like, oh, I do that and do that. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Like, do you guys ever, do hiring here? Like, what are you guys seeing? Or like, how do you guys typically go about hiring? You're doing it, but you're not like pitching yourself, because it would be weird to go to a networking event and pitch yourself to every person that you talk to, right? And everyone's just like, well, don't talk to that guy. He's going to try to sell you something.
Right.
You want to
be curious.
Just be
right?
curious. It's the same thing you want to do digitally, right? When you handle your referrals or your networking, you're not going straight for the jugular. So there's a weird conception of just like, because there's more volume, I can pitch more. But I say, instead of hunting at scale, why don't you farm at scale, invite people to a conversation with you, and then the people that reveal themselves to interact with you, likes, comments, profile views, responding in your DMs, that's where you can figure out kind of quote unquote who to hunt, right? Where your target accounts are. So it's just kind of a reframe there. And that's just typically just how to get better responses on just LinkedIn using automation, even personal outreach, right? Let your profile do the talking for you, be more casual and chill in the inbox, in the DMs. And then that's where content is a huge opportunity for people to get to know you before they know you, right? Or really more importantly, get to know you before you even have to get to know them, or even know that they're even there. Right, like I've had my flywheel running for 5 years. I've added almost 20,000 connections in 5 years, just steady every single day. And I've
What do you mean by flywheel?
The flywheel is I have a sequence, so I just connect with recruiters every single day on autopilot. And so I'm always inviting people.
Yeah,
through Dripify. There's Dripify, Lemlist. There's different tools out there. I love Dripify.io. And I just introduce myself. I do a digital handshake. That's it. I don't pitch or anything else like that anymore. I did the first couple of years a little bit, and I had a lot of success. But when I wanted to incorporate content marketing, it was a lot more, I'm just going to introduce myself, invite people to just be in my network and connect with me. And my job is to just talk about stuff that I see, opportunities that recruiters could have with automation and content nowadays, or maybe better BD practices, and then prove that with content and just be really consistent there. And now people I get all the time, I've been following you for 18 months, 3 years, 6 months. I feel like I know you. And I talk to them like, well, nice to meet you. Like, it's great, but how much more fun is it? I'm having way more fun in 2025 than I was in 2015, begging for scrums from some HR manager at a food production plant in Downey, California, where I'm like, I know you need mechanics. You need mechanics. This other firm isn't good. We're good. Like, talk to me. He's like, yeah, well, but this. I'm like, like, it drove me nuts. So it's like the sell without selling. It's just like, I get to a show. Everyone says like, oh, if they only knew what we could do for them, they would work with us. Well, that's what marketing is. Show them in marketing. It's not a bunch of emojis or hashtags or AI. It's like, it's your voice, your stories, the behind the scenes, what makes you different, right? Show how you work. And if you're like, well, yeah, but every recruiter does that. And I'm here to tell you, not every agency does that. Right? If you are actually good at what you do and you get that feedback, you are in the minority of recruiting agencies. And that's just a fact, because I've talked to enough of them and I've talked to enough companies. And you should talk about that to your market. And don't worry if your feed is full of recruiters. That's not for them. It's for your market. Unless you're, of course, a rec-to-rec recruiter. But, it's like worry about, your market and don't worry about all that noise. So very long-winded breakdown, but hopefully helpful. Yeah.
What do you think about, because I know I hear a lot, people are trying to be more consistent on LinkedIn. And then the feedback that I get is like, gosh, I only got 5 likes. No one's commenting, no one's engaging. What would you say to someone that feels like they're not making any traction, that no one's really hearing what they're saying.
Great question. I love this, and this has been coming up all month, so it's fresh on my mind to talk about. There's twofold. Number one, are you connecting with your ICP every single day? Because that flywheel is important.
What's ICP for those that don't know?
Also, good question. Ideal client profile. So your target market, are you connecting with them every single day? And does your profile show that it's relevant for you and them to be connected on LinkedIn? That's got to be taken care of first and foremost. Number two, on content, I'm big over leads, not likes. Likes is not the first thing I look at. Even impressions aren't the first thing I look at. And impressions to me, are more important than likes. The first thing I want to see is if I post, if you got a premium or Sales Navigator account, you want to go to View Analytics, and you want to see the demographics of who's viewing that post. Because one of the things that happened, I had a client this month that I offboarded, and they're like, yeah, but I feel like I see recruiters all over my feed and all that. I'm like, okay, I hear you. Let's go to your feed. Okay, you can always click on follow if you want. But we looked at his post impressions, and we looked at the people that were looking at his content. The top 5 companies were all his target accounts. And his stuff was getting 5 likes, 15, 20, nothing crazy. But he was thinking his feed and maybe not a ton of likes is like, it's all recruiters on my feed. No, your feed is different than your analytics. And so you want to actually look at your analytics, because that's going to tell a better story. Now, if your analytics aren't the right people, make sure you're connecting with those people. Make sure you're writing content that's relevant to them. Another one of the traps recruiters fall into is they talk to other recruiters, right? And they kind of like a motivational, or recruiting so hard, yada, yada. Like, right, recruiters, like, let's link arms. Like, well, yeah, but they're not the ones buying from you. Again, unless you're a direct recruiter. Or they're talking to candidates. And again, candidates aren't the ones that pay the bills, like literally pay the bills. If you place them, that will pay the bills. But that's only part of the equation. So I always say, if you talk to candidates, you'll get candidates. But if you talk to clients, you'll get clients and candidates. And so just remember, like, you want to be talking to that target market, the people that sign the checks, right? Or the people that are right next to the people that sign the checks, right? Your champions, your decision makers. That's what you want your focus, your strategy on. And once you have that consistently, like, the stuff that talks about pain points and challenges almost always gets less likes than if you post a picture of your cute puppy, which is going to get, 200 likes, but maybe 1,000 impressions, versus I've had clients get stuff with 20 likes, get 100,000 impressions. Because it's that like to him. It's like, it means that people were paying attention. They were reading the post. They were engaged. He was hitting on something very relevant to the market. And that's the goal. You want to find your 4 to 5 themes that you always want to address over and over again. Care less about leads. I've had plenty of posts for clients get 5 likes, 9 likes that have turned into $20,000 placement, or getting 40 exclusive recs from a new client. It's not about that. It is just about, are you talking to your market directly in those posts? Is it relevant to them? Is it engaging? Are you teaching them? Are they learning from you? And are they learning from you and not someone else, right? Just sharing articles, reposting, it's just not nearly as effective as your voice. So, like, doing the work to find your voice and why your clients buy from you, why your market would buy from you. There's so much power in that. And there's so much more value recruiters can give to the market than typically they ever feel like possible. I think a lot of us have imposter syndrome because we fell into recruiting. It's like, how do we get here? And sometimes the margins are so ridiculous. It's like, does this make any sense? Like, I'm a C+ student. Like, how am I here? Right? But it's like, in figuring out communication and people, there's so many companies that haven't. Right? And that they need to learn, and things that are obvious to us are not obvious to your buyers. And that's the stuff that you want to share consistently.
Right. Would you say it's really important then to have that niche? Like, if you're trying to talk to your target audience, like, what are your thoughts on that?
It's important in terms of at least setting expectations. If you're going to be a generalist and try to turn someone from cold to warm, is it doable? Yes. But you're competing with now every agency. So if you have a niche, you're competing with way less agencies. Yes, there's less people, but then you got to think about it. If you're a solo person, how many clients can you handle at a time? Right? If you're, say, medical device, placing people in medical device sales, do you need 100 clients? Like, no. Like, you need 5 to 10 good ones. I mean, 5 good ones could be $500,000 right there in a year, potentially $1 million right there in billing. So I think people, I'm worried about Xing people out, but they also don't like, well, how much can you actually handle? Like, what's your capacity?
Right.
On commission.
That's so true. That's so true.
You just got to think about that. And so from there, do you have to just do SaaS sales at Series A to C companies, and that's all you do. Like, you don't have to be that specific if you don't need to. I have a client that does really well. They target all director and senior individual contributor roles across a couple different industries. Like, that's fine, and his stuff, doing really well. I think you typically get quicker results when you are hyper niche. Right. I mean, even Aerotech is a huge company, right? $6 billion company, or I don't know, they're different branches now, but they started out placing just Aerotech engineers, or aviation engineers. So they started there. They verticalized out as they had more people to support those verticals, because one person's only really capable of handling so much. So if you have your proof of concepts, if you know what you do well, like, double down on that. Like, I have a new client that has 90% of his placements are accounting and finance, 10% is like IT. I'm like, why are we going to cover IT? Like, your IT stuff is like referral based. It's going to fall in your lap no matter what. Like, so don't market for that. If you're going to turn someone cold to warm, you have to resonate with them so quickly that is important to at least have that bounce, like have that ability to resonate, and people do typically pay specialists more, right? So if you want sometimes the bigger fees, if you're known for a thing, you're typically willing to pay more for it. This is kind of how we operate. So that's some of the benefits to kind of honing down. And I think just the attitude of, well, what if I miss out on business, is completely looking at it the wrong way, because it's just, there's so much bad business out there. I think that to be the real question is, how do I get good business, quality business, and what's the types of companies that give good like what types of recruiters do those good businesses, those good companies give their business to, right? And like, that's what you want to really think of. Also, when you're getting a new client, they've probably already worked with a recruiter, and maybe they like them, they just aren't coming through for them, or they don't like them and they're not coming through for them. So like, how do you typically get those best clients? It's like they just haven't gotten the problem solved. So they're probably going to go with you because they see that you're competent in whatever they need filled, and that you're, hopefully, probably easy to work with. So there's a bunch of different factors. It's not, it's kind of per situation, but again, it comes down to, what are your strengths? What are your proof of concepts? Really double down on that. And if you're starting a brand new niche, just know it might take you 6 to 12 months to really get traction. Like, versus if you niche down a little bit more, something that you've already established, it might take only a couple weeks to really get traction with your marketing efforts.
Right. And then you can also, if you are recruiting for that one particular position, you can recycle. There's candidates that you're building that pipeline for that you can then use for other clients. So
that's exactly it. I mean, that's how we do it with mechanics. It's like, I told my recruiter to get 10 good mechanics every week, and I can submit them out to 10 different companies. And we'll see where we get bites. And it's that repeatable skill sets just make it so much easier to grow a desk.
Yeah. I want to talk about automation for a little bit, because I know that's like your specialty, and your just expertise right now is really, I think you call it like top of funnel, right? Is that a term that you use a lot? So how do people go about, because I mean, most of us are starting to use automation, now with all the tools out there, it seems like a good majority of the recruiters are starting to use it, but there's probably things that they're doing that either are not working, or that you've seen, you're like, oh my gosh, why is someone doing that? So what are some of the mistakes that you're seeing that people are doing, when they're using automation and like messaging people?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'll say this about automation. There's people that are way better at automation AI than I am. I would say I know just enough automation to be dangerous, but of the name digital recruiter, I am much more recruiter than digital. But that's gives I say that to give everyone hope. That's a recruiter that might be like, how do I attack this? How do I do this? And I'm telling you, you can simplify it, and your market is begging you to simplify it. And I want just enough automation so I can kind of dig in and do my work, do the human work. And that's one of the,
So when you're saying top of funnel, it's really like engaging, getting their attention, and then using the human, like being human to really develop that relationship.
Correct. Let's do the work to, like what I was saying earlier, to build the strategy, the accounts, the right people, and just invite them to your ecosystem. That's where I love just the top of funnel automation, just inviting people constantly every day, and then staying top of mind with content. To me, content is a sales touch point. It's not like marketing traditional way you think about it with hashtags and everything. Oh, my cousin's a social media manager or whatever. Like, not really that type of marketing. Like, really like sales marketing, a little bit more like kind of direct response, like with your consumer in mind first. That's really like the top of funnel. There's so many different ways you could spin off automation. You could connect it to your email and do SMS and different things. But I think just for kind of just talking about like LinkedIn, right? The approaches that we're seeing, connection request, or the profile not making sense, or the connection request being so obviously leading to a pitch, right? Like, oh, I know I'm going to get pitched, right? So just think about automation with the messaging. If everyone's expecting a pitch, well, what do you think works when you don't pitch? Now, that's a mindset issue a lot of recruiters face. I was like, well, that's too passive. I'm like, is it passive or is it effective? Because if you think you have to pitch because that's your one opportunity, then you're going to get a different type of business, and get a different type of prospect, right? But if you have just the EQ, the social awareness, right, the self-awareness to know what your market's going through, well, leverage automation to start conversations. And this is typically the next complaint I would get. It's like, well, that's a lot to keep track of. I'm like, well, you're tracking 20 to 30 better conversations of people you didn't annoy than not getting anything, right? And so like that's the way for me to leverage automation. I mean, we've done some, I think there's some cool different things where you can get signals where someone looks at your website, and like there's like our B2B and stuff like that. Like you can get pinged. I think there's some cool signals and stuff like that you can get. But I like getting signals, but I'm always very careful with what I message in automation, and I almost rather have less messages than more, because I want every message to build off the previous one. I don't want it to be repetitive. So that's another big issue, is like, hey, thanks for connecting, or circling back, or just in case you missed my previous message. Please get rid of all that immediately. If you're messaging, it's killing your messaging game. It's hurting your brand. And also remove as many I statements as possible. It's like, I do this and I do that and I can do this, right? Like, just challenge yourself with your about section, with your content, with your messaging, to remove as many I statements as possible. That's just one of the things I see across the board. So many people are coming across just self-centered, and they don't mean to be. Like, I know that people are generally trying to help, but that's how it can come across. It's all about you. And so I think those are some of the drip sequence best practices. Just really challenge yourself to like, what's in it for the person on the other side of this message. And if that's just starting a conversation, that's okay, because our job as recruiters is to gather as much intel as we can. And we can't get intel if we're not getting replies. Right, so you get the intel first to be able to see, is there urgency or a pain point here, and then you can qualify, does this make sense for me to work with this person or not, this company or not, right? So,
right.
But you can't skip those. If you skip those steps, you're gonna either get no responses or you're gonna get bad leads.
Do you feel like when I'm just thinking of LinkedIn. So if someone's using automation like Dripify or some of the other tools, and they're reaching out and then they're asking questions, being curious, would you say like the ultimate like call to action is to get that person on a call, or like, more of a...
Yeah. My first one is to build goodwill. Mm-hmm. And not my first move is to not shoot myself in the foot. And I don't know if anyone else has ever said it that way. I've came up with it recently. I think that's the first thing I think about. Like, how do I, because of how much volume we can do in the impressions, because of how much content I post, my only job in the DMs is to not make myself look like an idiot with like bad outreach or automation, because like if people are going to get the vibe with my content, and they can self-select in or out. Like, I'm good either way. Right, so number one, I don't care, because I have the right strategy, the right enough volume, and the content. If someone's like, great, like, I don't like your content, I'm like, okay, have a nice life. Like, I literally don't care, because the flywheel's never gonna stop. The whole goal is to find initially was to find the right 100 people, now probably 1,000, maybe not 10,000 people that vibe with me. I'm just looking, your vibe draws in your tribe type of thing. And like, that's all I think about. And so my first goal is just to kind of have that goodwill. I think even surprise people by the fact that I'm not pitching my services or anything like that in the DMs, and that right away kind of stands out, because I know other coaches are, right, and all that stuff, and the people have been let down by that and all that stuff. Same thing in agency world, right? Everyone's pitching Everyone's overpromising. No one's really coming through a lot of the time. So it's like, how do you show initially that your approach is different, right? You got to know what your competitor's approach is enough to know what is going to stand out. And that alone makes an impression, right? And then your market will kind of paint their own story in their head of like, oh, this is different. Like, now I'm intrigued, right? It's kind of, my friend Travis Janko put on this headline, recruiting's like herding cats. It kind of is, right? The more you want to pet the cat, the more it's going to run away from you. The more you ignore it, the more it comes to you, right? It's a very similar mindset. And so number one is just to build that goodwill. And then number two is just to ask questions. Sometimes all I say to people is, hey, I appreciate you reaching out to connect. May I ask what inspired you to connect, right? That's an inbound. And that's it. Sometimes I get paragraphs. And then if it's me reaching out, I'm like, hey, we're in the same space. I thought it'd be nice to connect. I'm like, hey, I've seen your content, or hey, I saw your profile. I'm really interested in what you do. Like, I've been looking at automation or looking at content. Like, I think it's time. Like, this is why. Blah, 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 blah. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Have you tried this, or that, or thought about this? And then maybe there's a little bit of a back and forth. And then I'm like, all right, well, maybe we should talk more about this, right? Or more often what happens is they're like, okay, can we just, like, talk about this? And then they ask for the meeting. Right, so I've had it happen twice today already, and so that's like the different world that maybe some listeners are like, that's not real, Clark. That the world doesn't exist. That's fake. And I have the screenshots, I have the inbox, I have the client wins to show you it's very real, and that's what I want for people is to warmed up calls. It's not about as many meetings as you can get. I want good meetings. Like everything I do every day, this included, I'm excited about. It makes sense. I'm on good meetings. I'm talking to the right people every day. Does everyone buy from me? No, I don't expect or want everyone to buy from me, but I'm having the right conversations every day. And I think with the meeting culture and the Zoom, know that your market's going through that too. People have meeting exhaustion. They want to know that a meeting is going to be worth their while. So know that and do enough digging to be like, hey, this might actually make sense for us to talk, right? And they're going to be like, yes, like that's what you want to get to. You don't want meetings just for the sake of meetings. That's how you get ignored, ghosted, you get stopped taken seriously and all that because like, oh, you're just trying to hit a metric. Like, I don't want to just be a metric. I want to actually talk if there's something to solve, right? And that's where the content allows me to be patient in the inbox because I know they're going to see my stuff every day. If they're messaging me, if they like, they comment, their LinkedIn algorithm is going to show more of my stuff to them in their feed. So I can relax knowing the algorithm, if I'm consistent, it's going to do a lot of the heavy lifting for me.
Yeah, which you bring up a really good point. I had a question that's kind of a little, not off topic, but maybe a little bit. So when someone, let's say you connect with someone on LinkedIn, if they're not liking and engaging in your content, will a new person that you're now connected with, will your stuff start to come into their feed? Like, do you know anything about the current algorithm? Like, are they seeing it or?
Yeah, historically,
are they not seeing it?
Yeah, historically, the first 2 weeks, new connections almost always see your stuff, unless they decide to unfollow you or whatever. So if they show any slight engagement in that, they're going to see more of it, likes, comments, even if they click read more, right? And then you also have the message that you're sending out, an automation. So if they reply to that, right, they see that you're engaging with you, you're going to pop up more. So like the one little thing that you didn't really ask, but I'll say is you talked about the people that don't like or don't comment, all that. Like the people that don't, they're kind of out of sight, out of mind. You know what I mean? Like, some people are like, what if they don't do this? I'm like, okay, like, what about the people that do? Like, I get more worried about the people that aren't engaging, because if you have the flywheel running, there's going to be so many of those, you don't even have time to worry about the people that aren't engaging.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that, especially for recruiting, if there's someone that's, let's say, passively looking, and I think that there's a lot of people that probably are looking and you're coming up on their feed, but they don't want to like a recruiter's
happens all the time.
Because they don't, right? They don't want their job. If they're looking for a job, they don't want their manager seeing that they're engaging with this recruiter that has a role that just happens to be what they do, or even clients. Like, they're not going to be, they might be kind of like under the radar. They might be seeing your stuff, but not wanting to like it because...
LinkedIn is full LinkedIn is full of lurkers. It's 99% lurkers. So yes, you bring up a great point. And as an agency recruiter, that's also why don't tell you the whole story. Because some people, to your point, are afraid to show that they're interacting or they even know an agency recruiter. So it's a fantastic point. That profile views, your DMs are going to be more of a tell of who's circling, some of your post analytics. That's going to be much more of a positive sign and a tell for you of the right direction that you're going in. You could throw a couple of call to actions, right? If your posts are resonating, every candidate is looking if it's going to better their career. So I just fundamentally start with that perspective. So if you are posting content, is show ways that you've helped improve people, right? It's a great content strategy that a lot of my clients take. They share stories of, this person wasn't ever looking and they were passive, but we happen to have a client that had a great opportunity. They didn't even know, they didn't want to deal with applying for jobs or anything else. And then they share those stories, and guess what? More of those people see that, and they're like, oh, well, maybe I should talk to this recruiter. What's the worst that could happen? Right. And so that's exactly that's why content marketing is fantastic. That's why the automation is great for some more proactive recruiting and really even getting more out of your recruiter seat or whatever you have on LinkedIn. Automation, if you aren't leveraging it, you can probably 10x some of your outreach for what I've typically seen recruiters be currently at. So you can build that ecosystem, and then your content marketing it's fantastic for client and candidate type stuff. But candidate, it's almost like a cheat code when you get some of that content out there, because especially if you're in a market where they get hit up all the time, like engineers, construction people, accounting talent. Right? Who are they responding to? Well, they're responding to my clients in those niches that are posting content, because that's how they're able to weed through, because they're getting 100 emails as soon as they post open to work, but they're looking at their feed being like, is there a recruiter that actually gets my industry, gets me, and I feel like actually has the client relationships that I would be looking for.
Right. And having that content top of mind. If you're consistently posting, then you'll be the recruiter that's top of mind.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, I know, like you said, there's the LinkedIn, your LinkedIn profile and presence, there's the automation piece, and then there's the messaging, the content marketing. So I know you can help any of our listeners with all three, right?
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit, what are you doing now? If people have questions, if they want to reach out, I'll put everything in the show notes, but who would be someone that you could help?
Yeah, I think anyone that, if you recruit in recruiting, I've helped people outside recruiting, but this is for recruiters. If you're got questions about automation and want to figure that out and get that set up the right way, we can chat. If you're curious about content marketing and how to write posts that aren't going to make you cringe, or you're going to hurt your brand and going to get, actually help you drive revenue and pipeline, right? Those are two big things. Just even in general with business development and sales and just qualifying good business, how to have those conversations with hiring managers process and really build a robust pipeline. Those are kind of the three big areas that we cover, from a sales tech and content piece of things, marketing, content marketing piece. You can always, book a call. There's a link on my profile. Connect with me, ask me questions. We have digitalrecruiter.io is the website. We have boot camps. I have boot camps is kind of our group type piece, but a lot of my work that I do is one-on-one. So every single coaching thing that we do right now, you do work with me. It's so at all levels, even our group stuff, I'm the one that runs that piece of it. So that's kind of the fun part, is you do get to work with me on all that stuff, no matter what level that you're at, or however you work with us. There's, we do have course standalone, done do it yourself, done with you, and done for you. So just, reach out, and we can figure it out.
Love it. And I'll put that link in the show notes. And Clark, thank you for coming on. This was so great. And I'll have to have you come back soon. And you're going to be helping me with some things too. So looking forward to that.
I can't wait. Yeah. No, thank you for having me. This is super fun. Thanks for letting me ramble on about stuff that I love doing. So I appreciate it.
We all love to hear it. So thanks for coming on. And everyone, thanks for joining us for another episode. And we'll see you next week. Thanks for joining me today. I would love to hear what resonated with you or suggestions for a future show. Connect with me on LinkedIn and be sure to sign up for our monthly newsletter. All the links are in the show notes. And if you or someone you know is an amazing recruiter and is looking to join my brokerage recruiting model for more time, freedom, and money, let's chat.